Have you ever felt like you're endlessly chasing healing, but never really fully arriving at the version of yourself that is powerful, confident, and magnetic? Today I'm going to reveal a radical truth. The pursuit of healing, especially for women, can actually work against you and keep you stuck in cycles of shame, self-doubt, and low energetic voltage. In this video, you will learn why the spiritual advice of dissolving your ego is not only outdated for modern women, but is actually harmful. You'll discover a key feminine transformation, turning your wounds into the fuel for power, pleasure, and magnetism. This is the beginning of a new paradigm for women's healing. One that doesn't keep you small, endlessly processing, but actually electrifies every area of your life. If you're new here, my name is Silvana Kamala, and I help women transform their wounds into power with my proprietary method, Venusian Tantra. Okay, let's start off by defining the feminine healing trap. The fact that dissolving your ego is actually what's going to heal you, when in fact it's what's keeping you powerless. For decades, spiritual teachings have told us to let go of our ego, dissolve into the oneness, transcend the pain and the wounds, and just give it into source in order to heal. This is usually coming from a lot of masculine philosophies on non-duality and ego dissolution, and we hear ego is the enemy. However, whenever we look at the history of spirituality, what we know about spirituality has been made by men and for men. Therefore, the feminine path of spiritual healing for women is very different. The collective feminine ego has already been systemized, destroyed, and suppressed by all of these patriarchal structures that we live in. So whenever we have the modern woman, after going through centuries of patriarchal control and rule, that, by the way, affects all of us, men and women, but this is specifically for women and for the spiritual path of a woman. For decades, spiritual teachings have told us to dissolve our ego, let go of our pain, and transcend our wounds. But here's the truth that is not addressed, is that there's a difference between masculine spirituality and feminine spirituality. And masculine spirituality is about the dissolution of the ego. However, feminine spirituality is radically different. We see this whenever we understand the concepts of the divine masculine and divine feminine. We can look at it from many angles, but for the sake of this video, we're going to look at Shiva and Shakti. Shiva being the absolute dissolution of everything that is, the destruction of the ego, the emptiness, the void, the witness, awareness, just awareness and consciousness of its own. And then Shakti is everything else that is observed. Okay, so if we look at masculine spirituality path, it's about achieving and trying to aim for this Shiva-like perspective. And then feminine spirituality is about embodying Shakti in a more alive and embodied way. The collective feminine ego has already been shattered by colonialism, by the patriarchy, and by ancestral trauma. When women try to dissolve their ego, it leaves them living more confused, it perpetuates cycles of self-abandonment, and it causes an energetic depletion. The result of this is women who are deeply spiritual but are still powerless, are still disconnected from their body, they're unable to fully express themselves and create a life that they want. And here's the little distinction I want to make. What if your wounds were not a problem to be fixed, but in reality, they're the very source of the voltage and vitality that belongs to you? It just has not been alchemized yet. Venusian Tantra is built on this paradigm-shifting idea. Your emotional wounds are your deepest source of power when you know how to work with them. Instead of endlessly processing or bypassing your pain, you learn to alchemize it, turning your shame, your anger, your grief into power, pleasure, magnetism, and even more confidence. And this is how you go from operating in low voltage to becoming a high voltage woman that electrifies every single room that she enters. The healthy feminine ego is not about arrogance or separation. It's about having a strong, empowered, and authentic sense of self. The ego becomes the container that holds all of your emotions, your desires, and your boundaries. Without it, your energy leaks, you're constantly looking for external approval, you struggle to say no, and you seek validation outside of yourself. The goal of healing is to rebuild your ego in a feminine way, rooted in your body, cyclical, intuitive, and deeply connected to your archetypal power. Feminine archetypes are the blueprint for your psyche and your organizational system for your inner world. By working with the archetypes like the queen, the witch, the empress, the warrior, you're actually creating a foundation. And this foundation is actually the foundation for individuation, which is a Jungian psychological term, but it's basically the process of becoming fully, authentically yourself. This is the starting point for mature feminine energy, conscious use of your own sexual energy, and a life that is filled with pleasure, with presence, with purpose, and with prosperity. Archetypes help you understand your shadows, but also your gifts, giving you a map to navigate your healing process and your transformation. So why is this so important right now? Even with all of the freedoms of the modern world, most women are still operating at very low emotional and energetic voltage. They're still carrying wounds that have been passed down from generations that are not even theirs to carry anymore. And why does this happen, and why doesn't anyone talk about this? Well, because the world actually profits from women's self-abandonment and for women's self-betrayal. But the revolution is here. Times are changing, and it is time to reclaim our power, not from the hierarchical, egotistical perspective, but from a very internal, deeply embodied part of ourselves. When you learn to turn your wounds into power, you become a force of nature. Your presence becomes magnetic. Your relationships deepen. Your creativity explodes, and your leadership transforms and inspires other women around you. This is not just personal transformation. This is a revolutionary act that changes the world around you. This is just an invitation, so you can stop looking at your pain and your wounds as something that you need to escape, something that you need to transcend, something that you need to dissolve your ego for, and start looking at them as the source of your power. The first step is always acknowledgement. And whenever we acknowledge something, we begin recognizing something deeper, something beyond. And our wounds also start feeling seen by us, and we start feeling this alchemical process taking place. And if you're ready to go deeper, stay tuned, because in my next video, I will be teaching you about the 10 tantric archetypes, which are the 10 models, the 10 faces of a woman's raw natural energy. And you will notice that there is always a particular one that you resonate with the most. And this is usually the archetype that's already living in you, embodied in your everyday life and in your body. You're not here to endlessly process your wounds. You're here to electrify your life, and it starts now. I'll see you guys next time.